Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us today. Well, we may be in some sort of recess for Congress and at a standstill waiting for President Trump to come back into office. But Congress is still working under the leadership of Mike Johnson. Now, I don't agree with Mike Johnson on most things, but I have to give credit where credit is due. This week, Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina has had enough with the whole transgender situation, women using men's bathrooms and men using women's bathrooms. So she put through a bill. Take a listen to Nancy Mace talking about that bill that she has proposed on the floor, which is now passed.
The question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using...
100% yes.
My question to you is...
It doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills.
You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McBride.
100%.
But should legislation be created targeted at one specific person?
It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but
you've said it was aimed at her.
No, I have said it's a result of this. I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I'm not going to stand for it. And the speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private spaces.
Now, Speaker.
End of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom?
Speaker Johnson has said he wants to treat every new member with the words dignity and respect. Forcing this congressperson to go into a male restroom, is that dignity and respect?
Forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect. And I'm absolutely going to stand in the way of anyone who thinks it's okay for a man to be in our locker room, in our changing rooms, in our dressing rooms, in women's bathrooms.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace absolutely taking that beta male, I don't even know if you call him a male, from ABC. I mean, unbelievable. The fact that we have to beg for men to not be in women's restrooms. Folks, a lot of you who watch this show have been around this earth a lot longer than me. But can you think back at a time when we dealt with something so insane that we have to beg men to not use women's restrooms and respect their privacy? Now, I said I don't always agree with Mike Johnson. In fact, I disagree with him on most of the time and the work that he does. But I have to give credit where credit's due. Here's Mike Johnson this week defending that bill.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity. And so we can do and believe all those things at the same time. And I wanted to make that clear for everybody because there's lots of questions. But that's where I stand. I've stood there my whole life, and those are facts.
I'm going to reiterate again. I don't usually agree with Mike Johnson, but I think Mike Johnson may watch the show because you hear me say that very often on this show. There's no such thing as a transgender. A man is born a man, genetic makeup of a man. There's no changing your DNA. We know that to be fact. So anybody should suggest otherwise, that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, is in some sort of alternative reality, which it seems the Democrats are usually in as it stands. I want to get over to some foreign policy and bring in our guests today. President Biden met with Xi Jinping in their final meeting, likely ever, at the G20 summit over the weekend. And they talked about some things, Xi Jinping sending some messages for President Trump. Our guest today is the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, Gordon Chang, a great American. Gordon Chang, thanks so much for joining us back here on the Great America Show. It's always a delight to have you on the program. Folks, for those of you who haven't picked up Gordon's book yet, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Christmas is around the corner. You should be informing. If you're a great American, you should be informing your loved ones, your family members, your friends, what's going on in this country, and more importantly, what's going on with one of our greatest enemies, China. Gordon, like I said, great to have you back with us. I want to start with this decisive win by President Trump. First, tell me what it means for America, what it means for China, and what it means for the rest of the world when it comes to America being number one again.
Well, America is number one. Biden allowed the world to think that China was number one. And that caused all sorts of problems because China was waging proxy wars around the world, in Europe, in Ukraine, across North Africa, where China and Russia were fueling insurgencies that looked like wars, and China was backing Iran's assault on Israel. So essentially, Moscow and Beijing were setting the world alight. One of the great things, John, is that this month, we have seen China become uncharacteristically quiet in East Asia, in its peripheral water and air. Yeah. And there might be some internal reasons for that, but I think the most important one is that Xi Jinping wants to give Trump a very wide berth. I think the Chinese are very worried about Trump returning to the Oval Office. They don't know what he's going to do. He's unpredictable in their view. They know they can't control him, and so they don't want to take him on. So even before Trump has taken the oath of office, he has brought peace and stability to a very important part of the world.
You know, I mean, I want to get into some of the things that's going to come with the Trump presidency, with him coming back to office. Tariffs, obviously, being among the first, the biggest and the first. So we'll start with that. A new poll out from Reuters shows that a poll of 50 economists over at Reuters that Trump's going to unleash nearly 40% tariffs on China in early 2025. So that's just in a few months within him taking office. These obviously a lot bigger, Gordon, than the 7.5% to 25% tariffs that were levied on China President Trump's first term in 2016. These folks, these economists are predicting around a 38% tariff generally on most goods, but a ranging tariff between 15 and 60%. So these are massive. I think President Trump has even talked about 100% in some cases on some things. Do you think President Trump holds through on these? I know Lou Dobbs is up in heaven right now, and he's absolutely pounding the hell out of the table saying, go get him. What is your thoughts on these?
I think Trump will do that, especially with Lou's help. Nobody is going to say no to Lou. So, But I think these tariffs are a great idea. They're important to do because remember, when Trump first imposed these, he used his authority under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, and he used these tariffs as a remedy for the theft of intellectual property. China has continued to steal American IP to the tune of about $500 billion a year. So we've obviously got to do something. So when you get a lot of economists and smart people saying they don't like tariffs, I say, okay, but what are you going to do about IP theft? And by the way, you hear a lot of these economists say, well, it's just the American people are going to pay these tariffs. Maybe not. In the 2018 tariffs, China picked up 75 to 81% of the cost of these tariffs. And I think that China is going to do the same thing this time because it has more incentive to do so. And by the way, China is already driving down the value of the renminbi. And I think that's in anticipation of the Trump tariffs. And that's going to make Chinese products cheaper. So even before Trump gets into the Oval Office, he's having a beneficial effect on prices in America.
Few things there. You said steal IP. They don't steal it, Gordon. We give it to them. But if we want to, we could categorize it as that because our people are just absolute idiots. Tim Cooks of the world, smartest people in the world, but also the dumbest people in the world. Elon Musk, another one, having a huge influence over in China. He's got to get the heck out. To the people who say no tariffs, I'm going to say what Lou Dobbs would say to them: you can go to hell. Because it's Gordon. What else are we supposed to do? How else are we supposed to get Apple? How else are we supposed to get Elon Musk and Tesla? How else are we supposed to get Microsoft? And I'm just naming a few, but you can go down a laundry list, Gordon, of some of our nation's biggest manufacturers, some of them that partake in almost all of them, these top ones in national security here in America. The computers in the DoD are not made in America. They're made in China. You can go, like I said, go down a laundry list of things. How do we get them out of China? I was reading an article this morning, I think it was from The Economist, where it said Vietnam is going to be the new China. That's fine with me. I don't care. I understand, Gordon, There are some jobs that we just cannot do in America. It's simply for the cost of it. I understand that. I would love to see everything in America. Obviously, that's never going to be the case. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the workers. We, cannot simply afford it. So I understand that. But getting out of China is crucial. How do we get these people out?
Two ways. Tariffs, number one. Second thing is just apply U.S. law, existing law. The Tariff Act of 1930 prohibits the importation into the U.S. of goods made with forced labor. Now, you mentioned a couple companies, Apple. Apple products have been made with Uyghur forced labor. And so all we have to do is apply the law. The reason why we want to do this is because China uses Uyghurs, Kazakhs, other Turkic minorities to basically make products, and that's financing China's program of genocide. So we should not be financing the most horrible crimes in history. And all we have to do is, we don't have to change the law. All we have to do is enforce our law. So tariffs and the Tariff Act of 1930, do those things, I think we really clean up a lot of problems for us. And one other thing, John, I'm happy if business is done in Vietnam rather than China. Yeah. But we can actually move that business to our hemisphere. We have a trade agreement in existence already. It's called CAFTA-DR. DR is Dominican Republic. CAFTA is Central America. The reason why we have migrant problem at our southern border is because those societies have been destabilized. We bring factories back to Central America. We stop the migration into the United States. Those are products, some of them will never be made in the U.S., as you point out. Yeah. They should be made on our side of the Pacific. We can do it, and we can do it with virtually no cost to the American consumer. Actually, probably cheaper products in Central America than in China.
I often point out on the show, Gordon, that more lives are lost as a result of our wide open southern border than wars that we've fought overseas in the Middle East for the last 24 years. It's just a fact. Hundreds of thousands of people a year dying from fentanyl overdoses coming from China through the southern border via Mexico. I'm all for spending the money, and I hate spending money, but I'm all for spending the money to get Mexico built up and get the corruption the hell out of that place. Because at the end of the day, Gordon, whatever money we spent is better well spent in Mexico than it is in Ukraine and Iran and every other place that we've given money to over the last 8 years or so. I'm all for building up Mexico. I'm all for helping them get rid of their corruption. I'm all for getting rid of the drug lords and stop letting these folks run this country and giving business to countries like Puerto Rico, giving business to countries like Puerto Rico, territories like Puerto Rico, countries like Dominican Republic. If they can even help out Haiti, I'm all for it. Because at the end of the day, it'll help us. It'll help our illegal immigration problem. And it'll help us get the hell out of China. I don't understand how, at what point. Obviously, the Belt and Road Initiative was a big turning point. But at what point did we become so, because it seems, Gordon, it's in the last maybe 10 years or so, it's gotten even worse. When have we gotten so divested? At what point in the last 25 years have we gotten so divested in China? Yeah, I mean, those are great points. All we have to do, some little changes. We don't even have to spend any money to do it. We're going to buy products. Let's buy them from people who actually like us rather than people who are trying to kill us. And you're absolutely right about fentanyl. The Communist Party is behind the fentanyl gangs. And it's because some of the producers are state-owned. We know that Chinese TikTok, which propagates Chinese narratives, they promote illegal drug use in the U.S. Chinese diplomats support the fentanyl gangs. There's Chinese central government subsidies for fentanyl. Every container that leaves China is inspected by officials. And the fentanyl producers, they launder their money through the Chinese state banking system. So this is a Communist Party plan to destroy American lives. Yeah. Talking about war, I don't want war overseas. I don't want a World War III. I don't want a world with Ukraine. We shouldn't be over there. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I don't want to be involved in a war between Palestine and Gaza and Israel. I want nothing to do with that. What I want is war with Mexico. I want war with the cartels. Because enough's enough, Gordon. How much longer can we put up with this? And I don't mean a literal war with Mexico, because, I mean, at this point, the leaders of Mexico are pretty much just hostages. They're held hostage by the cartels. The cartels threaten to kill their family members. Maybe they do kill family members. they're hostages at this point. I mean, they have no other choice. But what we heard was President Trump, as towards the end of his last term, he wanted to blow up these drug factories. He wanted to send missiles in and absolutely blow them up. They were able to tell where they were based on geothermal imaging. They can tell where the heat was coming out of the factories in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, it's not manufacturing facilities for goods. It's manufacturing facilities for drugs. And it was leaked out by, I think, Mark Esper in his book. And he thought he was hurting Trump by saying it. And it turned out people were actually in favor of going in and blowing up these drug lords because they're criminals, Gordon.
Yeah. The one thing that we haven't focused on is that the Biden administration has allowed the Mexican cartels to operate on U.S. soil.
Right.
In places along the border, like Los Angeles, cartels are actively involved, and the Biden administration has done virtually nothing about it. We shut down the drug trade. However we do it, we get the cartels off of American soil, and that's really critical. And hopefully we make sure that they do not operate in Mexico close to our border. So one way or another, we've got to do that, because otherwise we have got these gangs taking over states like California and Arizona.
And you bring back, I think, Gordon, you bring back the death penalty and for these people. And I think you see a lot of things change. Now people say death penalty. Why doesn't China, Gordon, you're very familiar with China. Why doesn't China have a drug problem like we have? Why doesn't countries like Singapore, the Philippines, why don't they have drug problems like we have, Gordon?
Yeah, Singapore doesn't have a drug problem because of the death penalty. It's very clear. It's a small place. You can see how the effect of these penalties work, and it's very, very effective. China doesn't have a drug problem because they've got a totalitarian state which really makes sure that people don't take drugs. Now, they're not able to control some of their southern parts near places like Thailand and Myanmar, Burma, but elsewhere throughout the country, they are very effective in controlling it.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a decent amount of time in Asia, and I'm going to be heading there at the end of this week and spending some time over there. And I mean, like I said, I've spent a decent amount of time. I've been to Thailand, I've been to Japan, and I go out to bars, I go out to clubs, and you go out to a bar and a club here in America, Gordon, you got someone coming up to you asking if you want cocaine, asking if you want marijuana. Every time I've been over there, I've never even seen it. I've never asked for it. I've never looked for it, but generally, you have people coming up to you ask for it. I've been in Thailand. I've never had anyone come up to me and ask. I've been in Japan. I've never had anyone come up to me and ask for it. I've been to Myanmar. I've been in the Philippines, and no one. So it may be there, but it's not as brazen as I was in New York City last week going to the Knicks game. I parked a block away from MSG, and there's a guy selling pre-rolled marijuana joints on the street corner. So it may just be marijuana, but it doesn't matter. It's marijuana today. It's cocaine tomorrow, Gordon.
Or it's marijuana laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break here. We're talking with Gordon Chang. We're going to come right back. We're going to go a little bit deeper into President Joe Biden's last meeting with Xi Jinping and the G20. It's going to be the last time they meet, probably forever, unless they discuss some sort of business deals. We'll find out. Folks, Gordon Chang's book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. You can get it on Amazon.com, wherever you buy your books. We recommend it to you highly. Grab a copy for you. Grab a copy for a family member. Short, easy read, very informational. We're coming right back with Gordon. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
We're back, folks. We're talking with Gordon Chang, and the book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Foreword written, the epilogue written by the great Lou Dobbs. So Lou Dobbs didn't endorse anything that he didn't believe in. And for you guys who have watched him for the last, I don't know, we'll say 50 years to make it easy. Lou had great integrity and, didn't just back up things for the hell of it. He did it for a reason, and there's a reason he did it, because it's important. So Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America by Gordon Chang. You can get it, like I said, Amazon or wherever you buy your books. Gordon, Xi Jinping and Joe Biden met for the last time, presumably, at the G20 summit, where if you guys were watching the news or following this podcast, you saw Joe Biden was very lost in the rainforest and wandering, missing the family photo. I mean, I don't know if it was on purpose or he was just enjoying a vacation, but damn, that man seems like he's got 2 feet out the door, Gordon. But nonetheless, Xi Jinping, in his goodbye to Joe Biden, which was probably more of a hello to Donald Trump, sent him a message saying that his red line is that he draws it at democracy and human rights. The second part is pretty funny. The first part is funny, too, being he's a dictator. What does he mean by that? What kind of message is he trying to send to Donald Trump, saying his red line is human rights, as he hosts concentration camps all across this country, and democracy, where he's a dictator? I mean, we're going to get into Jimmy Lai over in Hong Kong in just a little bit, but what does he mean by democracy and human rights?
This is what the Chinese leaders, and especially Xi Jinping, are most worried about. They're worried about the Chinese people. And so what Xi Jinping was saying was the United States shouldn't try to promote representative governance, democracy, or human rights. The one reason why they really did not want Mike Pompeo in the Trump administration is because Pompeo actually tried to talk to the Chinese people, and that infuriated Xi Jinping. The thing is, they got Marco Rubio, who's going to do the same thing. But the point is that Xi Jinping was, as you say, sending a message to the Trump administration, say, don't talk about democracy, don't talk about human rights.
What's Xi Jinping so worried about? If he's doing such a good job over there and his people love him. What a lot of people don't realize, Gordon, my father spent a decent amount of time in his earlier days in China working for Citibank and spending a decent amount of time over there. And, he had told me something that I had never realized. And we obviously know China is like the king of deceitfulness and lies. But when he explained to me, I said, you look at the skyline of Beijing and you look at all these beautiful buildings. I mean, the place must be booming. And he said, what do you mean? I said, look at all these skyscrapers. It looks like New York City. He says, those things are all empty. Every single one of those skyscrapers is literally just for show. It's like that movie they made about North Korea where they go into the grocery store and it's all beautiful fruits and everything. It doesn't exist. It's all smoke and mirrors. What kind of democracy does Xi Jinping think he's running over there, or at least trying to fool the rest of the world, Gordon?
Well, right now, the Chinese leaders are especially concerned about the mood of the Chinese people. Chinese people have been very glum, very docile, just completely defeated. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, especially this last month, we have seen one incident after another of these mass killings in China. They're now almost one a day. And, if people can, if they can pray for the Chinese people right now, because innocents, including school children, are being slaughtered. But we're also seeing other mass incidents which are unnerving the Communist Party. Just to give you an example, in June, 4 college girls in central China went and thought it'd be a good idea to have dumplings. And so they got on their bikes, they rode 50 kilometers between 2 Chinese cities for dumplings. That has now turned into a mass incident where 100,000 kids will do the same thing on any given night. And the Chinese leaders are now hysterical because they're worried about people turning that into a political protest. So we're seeing a Chinese leadership right now that is even more insecure than normal. And by the way, if it weren't bad enough for them, they really don't like Trump because Trump is popular with China's people. He's popular not because he says things that they like. It's because of who he is. He's open, he's fresh, he's unfiltered. He is exactly the opposite of the lifeless leaders in China, Xi Jinping and especially his predecessor, Hu Jintao. And so the Chinese people just love Trump. And that's one thing that really drives Xi Jinping over the edge.
Well, it's not just the Chinese people. I don't want to get off topic here, but I was reading this morning a poll done, and between the ages of 18, I think, to 54 in Britain, 50% of the males wish they can go ahead and vote for Donald Trump. I think it's across the board, Gordon. They see him as this male dominant figure. And, some people don't like Trump because of his messaging. But you know what? It gets the job done. You see President Trump, he did a tour with Tucker Carlson, and he came out and he was talking about John Bolton. And he said, and he used John Bolton very strategically. He said, I'd bring this idiot with me to meetings. And Vladimir Putin would look at him and say, oh, damn, this guy wants to go to war. Let's not mess with him. And then he brings him over to North Korea. And Kim Jong-un looks at him. And I think Trump says that big, stupid mustache. He looks at him and says, this guy means business. He wants to go to war. So Trump had plenty of useful idiots around him, but he knew how to use them. I want to go into Marco Rubio. But first, I want to talk a little bit about North Korea, as I spoke about Rocket Man. I saw a funny meme the other day, Gordon. It was Kim Jong-un looking through a pair of binoculars, and he saw Elon Musk with Donald Trump looking at him launching his rocket. And then below it, it was Kim Jong-un saying, oh, no, he's got a new Rocket Man. I want to talk about Kim Jong-un. He's been very silent since November 5th, November 6th. What's going through his little mind right now?
There are two things. One of them, of course, is that they've supplied 4 combat brigades for Ukraine.
Right.
That's 12,800 soldiers, but they're talking maybe about 100,000. So there's that burgeoning relationship with Moscow, which China has approved. So he's making money there. But internally, Kim Jong-un is worried about what's going on inside North Korea because the economy is worse than usual and people are unhappy. And again, it's another insecure totalitarian leader. So right now, if it weren't for the money he's getting from Russia, he might not be in place anymore. So he's really worried about that. And he's carrying on this enormous spat with South Korea right now, a spat that North Korea can't win.
Interesting. So do you think his whole nuclear program, his whole rocket launching program is on hold right now? Do you think he's developing it? It's sort of scary. Like I said, I've been to Korea before, South Korea, of course, and I walked those tunnels underneath the DMZ where they lead right into North Korea. North Korea's got caught building tunnels right into the middle of Seoul. It's kind of scary. As you're on the tour, Gordon, they tell you at any point North Korea can flood the tunnels and drown everybody out. As soon as I heard that, I started running with my head down to get the hell back upstairs. And I was claustrophobic as it was already. So being in a 5-foot tall section, as I'm 6'2", wasn't exactly easy. But do you think Kim Jong-un looks to ramp up his rhetoric against America, or do you think he takes an easy approach and tries to befriend Donald Trump once again and find some common ground?
I think Kim, and this is just a guess, this is wild speculation, but he's going to be quiet for a little bit of time because he just wants to know what the landscape is. He probably thinks he can't go back to what he tried to do with President Trump during Trump's first term, which was this attempt to come to some sort of agreement with the U.S. But I also think he doesn't want to take on America. So right now, I think Kim will be relatively well-behaved, at least for a little while.
Now, why do you say that you don't think we can get back to the point now? I'm not completely against America trying to make some sort of reconciliation with North Korea. You'll hear people on the left saying, well, they're a bunch of murderers and killers and he kills their own people. But at the same time, what is Xi Jinping? And I mean, we're their number one business partner. So you want to look at one, but you don't look at the other. You want to look at the concentration camps in North Korea, but you don't want to look at them in China because it's convenient for you, Mr. Adam Silver, Mr. Mark Cuban. So, people look at it from that aspect, that Kim Jong-un's a killer. Well, so is Vladimir Putin. So is Xi Jinping. I mean, we still do business with them. Do you think, why do you think that we can't get back to some sort of reconciliation with these people?
It's not Kim. It's basically Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin won't let Kim do that. Kim right now is vulnerable. He is even more reliant on China and Russia. And so I don't think the Chinese and Russians will allow him to do that. A lot of people, when in the first Trump administration, looked at President Trump's outreach to Kim Jong-un, that really was an attempt to pry North Korea away from China.
Right.
China did not like that. And so I think that you're going to see that Xi Jinping is not going to permit Kim to do that again. So that's just a guess, but it's not Kim. It's the Chinese and the Russians.
So why do you think it's out of President Trump's wheelhouse to try to go ahead and do that again and say, hey, Kim, why don't you, come over to our side? I mean, what is really at stake for it? China's not going to obviously blow up North Korea. I mean, they do give them a lot of money. I understand they need them in that aspect, but do you think it's more beneficial for us to have North Korea on our side than being on China and Russia's side, even if it does cost us a little bit of money?
Yeah, it might not even cost us any money because there's other incentives that the United States can give North Korea that don't involve the outlay of cash. Yeah, to answer your question, it is obviously on our side to pry away North Korea from China. And one of the reasons I say that is
Trump do that, do you think?
What's that?
Do you think President Trump tries to do that?
Well, that's what I think he tried to do in his first term. I think that was the basis of it. This time, the Chinese are really onto this. And so I think they are going to put their hooks into Kim and not let him do it. And Vladimir Putin's doing the same thing. But, and the reason why the Chinese and Russians are doing that is because Xi Jinping is thinking of going to war, and he wants North Korea to fight on his side. So the Chinese are going to be even more determined than they were last time. Again, that's just reading tea leaves, but it's my sense that they're going to be much more active in preventing Kim from doing what Kim might otherwise do, which is to come to some sort of deal with Trump. It's not an easy negotiation with North Korea, but at a time where the region could fall into a war, which would be World War III, by the way, because we got wars everywhere else, the stakes are much higher.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I think if anybody can get the job done when it comes to negotiation, it's President Trump. Maybe he needs to call John Bolton out for a little retirement and fly him over there and get some negotiating done. But, the old saying, kicking the dog while they're down, China's obviously very down right now. And I'm not for kicking an actual dog while they're down, but I am for kicking China while they're down because of everything they've done to this country. Gordon, they've never paid the price for the genocide they've launched on the world. With China, with COVID, unleashed it on the world. You hear Dr. Redfield now, and I don't know where he's coming up with this, trying to spew the notion now that the China virus came out of a lab in North Carolina. What's your thoughts on this and how President Trump holds China accountable finally for what they did to the world? Yeah, I haven't heard Redfield say that, but I'm sure he did. He said what he's referring to is that in around 2012, 2013, 14, I think it's Dr. Robert Barrick, but it was somebody at the University of North Carolina was manipulating coronaviruses. This was gain of function research. Yep. And President Obama in 2014 imposed a federal moratorium on gain of function research on U.S. soil. So what did Fauci do? He then outsourced gain of function research to a Chinese biological weapons lab, which is the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci should be held accountable for that. And clearly, China would not have had the technology were it not for the funding from Fauci. And we don't have to speculate about this, John, because there are two scientific papers from 2017 and 2019, I remember, from researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They are describing gain of function research, and they are specifically acknowledging funding from Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Right. So clearly Fauci was funding this, and he's not been held accountable. And the one thing that President Trump did, which was great, was to get us out of the World Health Organization, which helped China spread coronavirus beyond China's borders. That's 7 million people were killed by this disease outside China, including 1.2 million Americans. Now, I know people will say, well, it wasn't 1.2. I don't care. Any number above zero was unacceptable. Yeah. And we know that number was high. And we were speaking earlier about the Chinese people in the mainland there. how many of them really died, Gordon? I think the number they told us was like 80,000 or something like that. I mean, that number's also got to be in the millions because they were dumping them like they were garbage. They were picking up body bags, dumping them in a garbage pail, and that was it. On to the next one. There was no cameras allowed to be had because then you can figure out how many people were actually dying. But I think there's somebody who knows the real number, and it's got to be in the millions if we lost over 1 million here in America.
It is really, really high. And as you point out, we don't know because they did their best to prevent the world from finding out about it. But they were picking up people like firewood from the streets and cremating them, and we'll never know until the Communist Party opens up its files. In other words, after the party is gone, and then we'll see the archives.
I wonder if they even know how many were, because it was just, I mean, we're thinking back at it now. We were, you were on the show on Lou Dobbs Tonight very often, and we were Lou's number one issue aside from the border was obviously China. So he was very into it and investigated into it. And I mean, we were just see every single day these bodies picked up in bags, thrown in the back of a truck and disappeared, never to be seen again. So China's deceitfulness and lies continues. Gordon, I want to take one more quick break here. Folks, if you haven't bought Gordon's book yet, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. COVID was their start of their destruction of America, and they almost succeeded. Thank God for President Trump. Now we've got President Trump back. We're coming right back with Gordon Chang. Stay with us.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
We're back. We're talking with Gordon Chang. He's the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Of course, the foreword, as I told you, written by the great Lou Dobbs. So if you have any reason to go buy the book, there you go. Gordon, I want to turn to something we didn't get to last segment, Marco Rubio. I want to get your thoughts on him being picked as Secretary of State and the impact it'll have on China, the impact it'll have on the rest of the world, our enemies, our adversaries, and our allies.
Well, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State and Michael Waltz as National Security Advisor are two people who understand China. And that's exactly what China doesn't want.
Right.
Rubio has the experience of Cuba. He knows what it's like to live under communist society. And so therefore we got someone who really believes this. And that's important because this is not just a matter of a policy choice. This is someone who understands the life and death nature of communism. So I think that was a great choice as Secretary of State.
I mean, do you think he has what it takes to go in and negotiate? Now, Pompeo was, I know Pompeo is a friend of yours. I wasn't so fond of him, and I think President Trump towards the end wasn't so fond of him. I think there were some things he did that sort of were undercutting what President Trump was trying to do when it came to the releasing of documents, things like that. So, I kind of put him in the same basket as Nikki Haley, maybe not as bad as her, but cut from the same cloth. Bad enough that President Trump was, not asking him to join his administration. Do you think Rubio has the experience of a Pompeo to negotiate with China, to negotiate with Iran? President Trump's new best friend, Elon Musk, apparently is pretty good at negotiating, reportedly speaking with the ambassadors to Iran to try to see if we can simmer down tensions there a little bit before he heads into office.
Yeah, I don't think that Rubio has the experience that Pompeo has negotiating with China, but I think Rubio will come up to speed very quickly. I look at Pompeo from, the China perspective, and I understand what you're saying about the domestic stuff, which I don't really follow, but Pompeo was really tough on China. he closed the Houston consulate, and that was a good first step. And I think there were other things that he was going to do. But also the other thing that Pompeo did, which was important, was on his last day in office, he declared that what China was doing to the Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other Turkic minorities constituted genocide. And that designation has been kept in place by his successor, Antony Blinken. So that was important. And sometimes you need to come out and say those things, and Pompeo did it. And I think Rubio will be able to carry that forward because, as I said, Rubio believes these things. And whatever lack of experience he has, he'll make up for it very quickly.
Yeah, and I you know what? I shouldn't even ask that question because thinking back now at some of these folks that you had mentioned Antony Blinken, Secretary of State. You can go down the list, Gordon. Pete Buttigieg's Department of Transportation coming out making comments that Republicans wanted to close roads that Puerto Ricans and blacks come across, so they're racist. And then you got the guy Sam Brinton from the Pentagon or wherever he was, the State Department, the transgender bald guy who was stealing people's luggage. I mean, you can go down a laundry list of all these people who are completely inexperienced. You had the fella at HHS who looked like Mitch McConnell with a wig on. How you have a transgender. I mean, actually, I don't know why I say transgender. There's no such thing. Why you have a man pretending to be a woman over there at HHS when he knows damn well there's no such thing. It's not even possible. So there are, to talk about qualifications for the Trump department, Trump cabinet, they've far exceeded expectations of this prior administration. So everyone, in my opinion, he's picked so far is, I think, well suited to take the job or to figure out on the day. I'm not all for putting these career politicians, these career bureaucrats in jobs, Gordon. You look at where it's gotten us. You look at the Pentagon, who we've had running the Pentagon. Everyone's going crazy about Pete Hegseth. I know Pete. I've gotten to know him while I worked at Fox. Very good guy. He's got a career service record in the military, and the left is going absolutely crazy. Why are they going crazy? Because he's never worked in the Pentagon before. I think that's extra qualification. These people, Gordon, you have in there, 7th straight audit in a row, Gordon, they're unable to account for their budget. Where do you find these? I told Roger Stone yesterday, him or I could have been put in the Pentagon and we would have run the place better than it's being run right now. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Pete Hegseth will be great. And there's a lot of reasons. One that we don't focus on is you got a Pentagon right now that is not meeting recruiting goals, or if it's meeting them, it's dropping their standards. And I think Pete will be really good in getting people to want to join the military once again, because he'll make people proud again. Yeah. You know, you've had this crowd under Lloyd Austin. You know, he was a general, but what he did was he undermined our ability to fight. And I think that Hegseth will come in. And as you say, he'll have a fresh eye. He will not be beholden to the interests, and he will do the right thing. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, it'll be a new breath of fresh air. Before we get over to Ukraine, I want to talk about the World War III drum being beat over there with Ukraine and Russia. I want to talk a little about Jimmy Lai over in Hong Kong right now. His trial starting over there, and the importance it shows the world. The media tycoon locked up because he spoke out against Beijing, against Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping wants to talk about democracy, but here he is looking to jail not a political opponent, but someone who speaks out about it. What do you think this means, Gordon, as we see now this trial go forward for Jimmy Lai?
Yeah, what's happening at this moment is exactly what China didn't want to happen. They didn't want to try Jimmy Lai because they didn't want Jimmy Lai speaking to the people of Hong Kong and the people of the world. And Jimmy has decided that he is absolutely going to do that, and he did it. And so, Beijing right now, I think, is looking for a way to release him. He's almost 77. He's in poor health with diabetes. The last thing that they want is for him to die in prison. And so right now, his trial under the national security law is occurring. It's not going well for Beijing. Of course, he'll be convicted. But we also remember China is now trying to snuff out all free expression in Hong Kong. Another very important figure, Benny Tai, formerly of the University of Hong Kong, was just given a 10-year sentence. And there were 44 others of the Hong Kong 47 who were just dealt harsh sentences. So this is Beijing going very hard against any sort of expression in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and I think if convicted, he faces life in jail. Obviously, anything over 10, 15 years would probably be a death sentence for him anyway. And literally, Gordon, what's the force for speaking out against Beijing and their atrocities that they've released on their own people, right? I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Jimmy Lai is one of the bravest people in the world. He was a billionaire, still may be. He chose to stay in Hong Kong and to speak out. He's one of the world's true heroes. Right now, there are a number of heroes in Hong Kong, and the Biden administration didn't do very much to try to free them. I think President Trump, who knows about the case of Jimmy Lai, will do more. And I do hope that we are able to spring them. Beijing, as I said, probably doesn't want to keep Jimmy. So maybe there's something that we can do here.
We pray to God, because it's just unbelievable the things that China does to their people and anyone who speaks out against their dictatorship. But at the end of the day, Gordon, it's the same thing that's happening here in America. It's the same thing that's happening in Venezuela. So we have our own problems, but we pray to God that he makes it out alive of the situation. I want to turn to an issue happening over in Russia and Ukraine. Joe Biden last week allowing Ukraine to launch long-range U.S. missiles into Russia. The Kremlin accusing Biden of doing everything they can to keep this war going. It makes perfect sense. He wants to start a war before he leaves office, put it on President Trump, and say, see you later. U.S. has closed their embassy in Kiev over significant air attack intelligence, meaning Russia's probably going to start sending over some missiles of their own. You and I spoke before the show, and we might be in a disagreement here. Tell me your thoughts on this.
Well, Russia is bringing in North Korean troops, and probably in very substantial numbers. This is a major escalation of the war, and something has to be done. A lot of people say that allowing Ukraine to fire the attack and missiles into Russia is dangerous. And yes, it's exceedingly dangerous. But that's no longer a meaningful objection. And the reason is that everything going forward is dangerous. And the policies that we have in place right now, and if we were to continue them, trying to exercise quote unquote restraint, are going to lead to even worse situation. Got to go back to February 2022 when Putin was threatening to use his nuclear weapons. And Biden was obviously intimidated. Putin got the signal. He invaded Ukraine. Now Putin has continued to threaten to use his nukes. And no matter what we do, unless we are willing to give up all of Europe to Russia, allow Russia to annex Ukraine, Poland, France, Germany, we are going to at one point have to say to Putin, we will not be intimidated by your threats to use nuclear weapons. I think that we stand up earlier rather than later. People can disagree. But the point is, unless you want Russia to rule the world, because he's going to make the same threats, he's going to make those threats until someone stops him, we've got to do something.
But Ukraine, Gordon, the way I see it is there's no winning way for Ukraine forward. I mean, Ukraine is not going to defeat Russia. I think we could all agree on that. Why wouldn't Biden just wait 2 months? I mean, we're going into dead season now, Gordon. Congress will be out of session. Senate will be out of session. Joe Biden will be on vacation. Kamala Harris just flew down to Hawaii with Doug Emhoff. I mean, why couldn't he just wait and leave it to Trump nothing's going to significantly change between Ukraine and Russia in the next month or so. Why couldn't Biden just sit back, relax, and say, President Trump, you said you're going to end this war. Go ahead and end this war.
Well, I think that Biden's policy should have been substantially different from the beginning of this. And if he were tougher, and if he were show some moral fortitude, there would never have been an invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah.
But the answer to your question about why now is because Russia, with North Korean troops, is about to launch a counteroffensive in the Kursk region, as well as other places. And so there was, I think, a point where something had to be done at this particular time. I'm not defending Biden policy because I think that he opened the door to this invasion.
Of course.
But right now, considering the dire situation, we've got to do something. You know, one other thing, and that is we had we signed the Budapest Memorandum in 1994. We got an important advantage. We got Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons. If Russia absorbs Ukraine, then the rest of the world is going to develop nukes on their own because they're going to say that the word of the United States means nothing. They can't rely on us, which means we're going to have a lot of countries around the world, perhaps dozens, with their own nuclear weapons. That endangers American security in a way that we can't imagine. So although a lot of people will say, and I can understand the arguments, the point is we have got some really bad choices and we got to make the least bad option.
I want to get your take on one last thing here because you brought up nuclear weapons. President Trump, his first term in office towards the end, he looked towards denuclearizing the world, and he was apparently discussing that with Russia and other nations who have nuclear capabilities. Do you think that's a possibility? What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea that we just go back and revert to good old war, ground wars and missiles, and not have to go nuclear and ruin the whole world?
Okay, that's a 5-hour answer. But a really short way of looking at it is that the United States is the most powerful nation on earth. If nobody had nuclear weapons, we would be even more powerful than we are now, because a country with just 20 nukes, country with just one nuke, equalizes the power of the United States.
Yeah.
So that, this is Reagan's idea. And I think it was a good one. The problem right now is you can't denuclearize the world when it's on the edge of catastrophe. We have used our nuclear umbrella to protect our friends. If we don't have it, we have to have a military which is 4 or 5 times larger than it is now. Obviously, we can't afford that. So nuclear weapons are the ones that keep peace. They've kept peace for a long time. I don't think we should change our policies at this particular moment. If Trump can negotiate something different, then we can think about it. But right now, this is one of the most perilous moments, perhaps the most consequential moment in history.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of change coming over the next few months with Joe Biden leaving office. He couldn't have done any more destruction than he did, Gordon, in my opinion, when it came to America, when it came to the Middle East, when it came to our southern border. He's taken the term racist. He's been called everything because he wants to secure a border. We now look at Sweden is going to limit citizenship to those who share fundamental values. I wonder if the prime minister over there is going to be called a racist or a xenophobe for wanting to secure their country from people who may not be good actors for their country. Gordon Chang, the book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Christmas is around the corner, folks. Get a copy for everyone. Gordon, your final thoughts for the world, for America.
John, you were absolutely right. Those comments are really, really important. We've got to secure our border. We've got to secure our country. Biden, whether it was intentional or negligent or whatever, took our country down. Trump is going to save it. I believe, and not everyone is a Christian or a believer, but I believe that God intervened.
Yeah, I think so too. And for anyone who disagrees with that, go ahead and look at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where President Trump went like this and a bullet went like this. If you guys don't have faith when you look at something like that, then you probably never will. So we pray that you get it. Gordon Chang, once again, the book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, available on Amazon, wherever you get your books. We recommend it to you highly. Get a copy for you, a family member, a friend. Christmas is around the corner. Gordon Chang, we'll see you soon. We'll talk to you soon. Be well, my friend.
Yes, and you too, John, and thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today here on The Great America Show. We hope to see you back here tomorrow as our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. And as I said, folks, we recommend Gordon's book to you highly. We don't just say it for our health or just to sell a book. I've read through the whole entire book. I think it's an absolute read. But for anyone who cares about this country when it comes to China, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Folks, we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Same time, same place for The Great America Show. Till then, may God bless you. May God bless America. And may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.